Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Unravel Your Mind. We're here to transform relationships to love and to life. And I'm your host, Beth Bell, and I'm super excited about today because we have so many amazing questions. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who's submitted questions because they're just so amazing. And I think they're stuff that we are all struggling with in some way, shape, or form, or have struggled with, or know someone struggling with. So I'm excited to get through the questions today. And there's also a bit of a theme that I think you're going to see, a thread that's coming through what's going on in humanity, maybe, or maybe it's just with the high vibe group of people. But I think it's humanity because I think it's also very planetary. So let's see. We'll talk about that at the very end, the theme and how we're moving through it on this ascension journey and everything that we that we come across on the awakening path. So, but the holidays are upon us, right? So that's another interesting and exciting time for many, and for others, it's a crazy time. So the first question is very much related to that, so I'll jump right into it. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat. I am more than happy to answer them live. If you're watching this on replay, no problem. Enter it in and I'll catch it next week and bring it in as a question. So I always look forward to hearing what's going on in your mind so that we can blow up these beliefs and constructs that are no longer serving us, or put new ones in that help us thrive and live our life's passion and purpose. So, all right, back to Thanksgiving. First question is, Thanksgiving can be a very challenging time getting together with family. There sometimes can be drama. How do I stay centered and be my best self during all the craziness? What a great question. I feel fortunate that my family doesn't give me as much drama when we're together. But I understand that drama is a really tough thing during the holidays because everybody's bringing not only like the programming of their families, and they're all, working with the same program with a different lens, right? So everybody's got their thing. And oftentimes the people that we love the most, we sometimes treat the worst, just meaning that we don't intend to, but we're a little bit more vocal, we're a little bit more edgy, we're not putting on our best face sometimes. So I think about, before you come into the Thanksgiving holiday, what it is that you want to feel. Don't think about like how you want the turkey to be or the place settings to be or the tradition and all of that. Those are all details. They're nice details, but that's where everybody gets in a tizzy, right? Like, well, I want to do this. No, I want to do that. Well, this is important. That's important. Think about how you want to feel when you're there. And for me, when I think about Thanksgiving, I think about just feeling supported. I think about feeling with family and community, whether it's my biological family or it's friend family, that we have great conversation, that we feel love, and that we all feel grateful for the holiday, and we feel grateful for being with each other. So whatever the feeling is that you want to feel when you go to Thanksgiving, spend a little time just sitting with yourself. And I like to journal it because I think when we journal, it brings a level of focus to an intention. And so journaling really is, I think, a place to get the intention written down, and also to quiet your mind enough to think about what it is that you really want. Otherwise, sometimes it's like, oh yeah, okay, I'm thinking about what I want, but then we're doing like 10 other things. So just spend that quiet time really, really feeling into, what do I want to feel? And then think about what you might be able to do differently, or maybe the same as other years, to bring that feeling to everyone. How can you bring that to everyone else? And don't have any expectation of what you're going to get in return. Because oftentimes, we have big dreams and fantasies about what the holiday is going to look like and smell like and taste like, and it doesn't always work out that way. So let's get back to the little things and be in the gratefulness for having food on our plate, and for having clean water, and for having whatever it is that we have at on our Thanksgiving Day specials. So finding the little things, finding the gratitude, and really being anchored in how you want to feel, I think is the best way that you can approach potentially what in the past may have felt like a lot of drama. And then just staying true to that, staying true to how you want to feel, and not letting someone else rock your boat. Okay, the next question is also very similar. It is, Thanksgiving is an opportunity. It's a time to spend time with loved ones. How can I take time during this busy holiday to connect on a deeper level? You know, what's coming to me is when you're approaching that holiday, maybe there's some things that you can suggest that people do in preparation. Maybe it's the same exercise that I just recommended, that you ask everyone to think about how they want to feel, and then bring that feeling to the holiday. But you also might want to say, hey, you know, can we consider doing something unique and different this holiday? And maybe that is bringing to the table one thing that you're struggling with, and you would like support on from whoever is there during that Thanksgiving time. And one thing that is your superpower that you're just really proud of, and ask everyone else to do the same. I think, and if it's not at the dinner table, it might be at a, you know, like, let's have a pre-drink round table, or maybe a post-dinner, aperitif or something. And you actually ask people to bring one thing that they're struggling with, and one thing that you think is your superpower. Because what we might find is, number one, that we had no idea that a loved one is actually struggling with something because they're not telling us. And this might just be that prompting that they need to just share what it is. Now, I say that, and I also would like to just add that maybe you put some parameters around it, that like the share is only going to be like, 5 minutes or something. I mean, I don't like to put time frames on it, but we also don't want it to like spiral the whole group into like a crazy place either. So we don't want someone to go on and on and on about what they're struggling with, but just like come with something that's like really succinct, like, here's what I'm struggling with. And maybe it is that I'm single this holiday again, and I love being here with all of you, but I'd really like to have a significant other by my side, and I'm struggling with that. And being vulnerable and sharing that with the group that you're with, I think can just bring, so much more love and support back to you. And not that, yeah, okay, so that's one. And then share your superpower, because your superpower might be something that helps someone else's struggle, right? And so maybe your struggle is, I really need someone to help me make changes to my website. Like, maybe that's your struggle, right? Maybe it's not an emotional struggle. Maybe it's just like a logistical struggle. And maybe somebody sitting around the table is like, oh my gosh, I do that, or my best friend does that, or whatever. And it could be a close family member, and you just didn't know that they had that skill set. So I think bringing that to the table would be really, really great. One struggle and your superpower. One superpower. I'm sure you have many. So hopefully that's helpful to help the dynamic and to bring some fun into the conversation. One other thing comes to mind actually is, this one's a bit of can be a rough one. So you'd have to feel into whether this really works for you, but maybe this is when everybody's really comfortable with each other, and maybe you've already had some vulnerable moments. But one of the exercises that I had happen at a friend's house was, they said, okay, we're going to go around and everybody share one thing that you don't want anyone else to know. And it was like, and you're asking me to share this? Excuse me. And we did. And I found it to be really a beautiful sharing. And so, that could be something that you use during the holidays as well. But usually people are less apt to want to get into that kind of discussion unless you already know that it's a safe space, right? So that's really important to make sure that if you're going to approach something that deep, that you have a safe space. So that's just another side note as to how you might go about making the holidays a little bit more conscious and connected. Okay, question number 3. I have been married for the past 20 plus years. However, before this, I was married for 3 years to someone else. it was a mistake, but I feel badly about asking for the divorce. We haven't spoken in 23 years and I have been feeling like I want to reach out to apologize and clear the air. She seems like she is happy, but she is the grudge type. So I'm not sure if this is something I should approach. Did too much time pass to start all that up again? Ooh, I love this question. First of all, dear heart, I'm so glad that you're asking it, because it means that you're deeply reflecting on yourself and your relationships, and you're peeling back so many layers, especially even if it's like so long ago. And the fact that it's still a little bit heavy on your heart and that you're willing to approach it, I think is just an amazing thing in and of itself. So first of all, yeah, kudos for that. What comes to mind on that is so many things. One, I would write a letter. I wouldn't send it. I would write a letter. I would write everything you want to say, because I know that when I write something, I can really be deep with myself, because sometimes when we talk to people, there's emotions, there's unpredictability, there's time, like if we actually get somebody on the phone. But if you write, you've got it all laid out, like what you would actually say. So that would be step number one. Step number two is I would really feel into that healing heart that I feel like you have or desire around that relationship, and just feel into what would that feel like if I had had that conversation and she was receptive, not her old grunge self, but she was receptive. Like what would I feel like? How would I feel? And just really, really feel into that. I know sometimes that can be challenging because you're not there and it's not happening, but it's more than imagination. It's really about healing your own heart through that process of being like, wow, if I was able to express myself and she said, thank you for contacting me. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for caring. Thank you for wanting to clear this. Thank you for wanting to make sure that I'm okay. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for doing the work. Like, if she were to say all those things to you, like, how would you really feel? Like, it almost brings tears to my eyes, because I think, wow, I would feel really great if someone said that to me after writing them a letter. So that's step number two. Just feel into what that outcome would feel like. And then step number three is I would throw it out to the universe and ask the universe, show me signs if the timing is right for me to reach out to this person. I would look for, and I don't mean this exactly, but I would look for things like, is there someone from your friend circle that suddenly connects to you that is also connected to her? Is there something that happens? I don't know. I can't imagine you're on Facebook. Maybe you are. I don't know. Connected to them still, or something shows up, a picture falls out of nowhere that reminds you of that period of time in your life. Something that it's like spirit is speaking to me, nudging me, saying, okay, it's okay, it's okay. And feel into whatever that sign or symbol is, because you might get something that actually says no, like not a good time to reach out, not a time to ever reach out, because remember, at the end of this life, you will have that opportunity to meet with everyone and have that healing, which doesn't discount wanting to do it now. And, hopefully if it's divinely guided, that it will happen. But number four, I think, and this is just what's coming to me, is if in fact you got all the hits that said, yes, I should reach out to this person, then, and one other tool about this, like if you're not feeling like you're getting clear signs, I would take 5 days and say, for the next 5 days, before I go to bed, I'm going to ask the question, is it an appropriate time to reach out to, and put their name, ask the question, fall asleep, and when you wake up in the morning, is it yes or no? Like, what is the first thing that comes to mind, yes or no? So then if you get 3 yeses, obviously you don't have to do the full 5 days. But if you don't, then do the 5 days and see which one comes forward. And that also can help you answer that question. Another tip, and these are tips we can use for lots of questions that we have, is I like to muscle test. I do this actually so many times a day, I don't even realize it. But is the timing appropriate for me to reach out to my previous spouse? Take your fingers, your thumb and your middle finger, and put them together like this. You're probably familiar with this, and muscle test it. So you can start like just testing this yourself, like, my name is Beth, and it just naturally my fingers just stay together because that's true. My name is Pineapple, and they just go apart. I know you might be watching. If you haven't done this, you got to try it yourself, and you have to practice just a little bit. The best thing is when you just get the mind out of the way, and that's the practice. So maybe it won't work on the first couple of tries, but keep trying, because you will start to get from your higher self like yes or no, yes or no. And that helps me a lot. In fact, I use it so much that I can now just use the mental image of my fingers, and I don't always have to come to do this, but sometimes I still come back to it because it's helpful to just, if I'm really in a tizzy and I just can't get that clarity in my mind's eye to see my fingers, then I will use my actual fingers. So that's just another tip. Okay, so number four, you've been married for 20 plus years. And so it would be really important that you have a conversation with your current spouse about the journey that you've taken and why you feel so compelled to want to reach out. I would highly recommend it. I don't think you have to do it. I think you need to feel into if this is right for you and your spouse and the dynamics between you and your spouse. In some cases you may feel like you don't need to, that your relationship is close enough and that you just really want to have this conversation. But I think what's hard sometimes is that when the spouse finds out something like this later, because if you're scared of the confrontation or you're just apprehensive about what that person's reaction is going to be, I guarantee that their reaction is going to be 10 times if they find out later, like if you don't bring it to them, right? So that's the trick, is that if you are not sharing it with your partner because you are concerned about them hassling you or them pounding on you about it or whatever, those are not the right words, but you know what I mean. Then definitely have that conversation before you reach out, because it's going to come back 20 times, the power and the strength and the chaos, and it's going to create harsh feelings. And so you want to avoid that. But if you know that like your partner would be like, yeah, no problem, of course, if you just know that innately within yourself, then don't worry about, asking them or having that whole long conversation, because it might not be something that they need to have in their own sphere. All right. Hopefully that was helpful. I know it was a long answer. It's just what came out, those 4 steps. Tell me in the chat if there's anything else that you want to know about that, if that was helpful, or anyone else that's listening, even if it wasn't your question, let me know what you think. And let's go to the next question. Okay. So number 4, I like this one. I like them all. Hormones and happiness. I woke up feeling so down, so stuck, so unhappy, so not where I want to be in life. My brain kept going negative, and I had to consciously say no to it and try to consciously think positive thoughts. But it felt like digging through sludge to even try to think them. Not sure if this is hormones, but because when it lifts, there's no need to have to consciously think positive. I just am positive. And nothing in my life has changed. If it is hormones, what do we do about this? How do we crawl out of a negative hole? Is this creating new neural pathways, positive thinking habits? It feels super tough. Thank you for the vulnerability and the question. I think so many people are dealing with a similar situation, and I'm going to take it just maybe one step above the hormones. Definitely hormones can be part of this, but I'll just say it's brain chemistry, right? So it could be hormones like estrogen, progestin, testosterone, but it also could be serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, cortisol, right? And right now, our external environment can be super chaotic, right? It can be that we've seen something on social media that tweaks us, plants a seed in our subconscious or conscious mind. We go out, we see something, Even if it's homeless people yelling, right? It has an impact on us. And so what's important is that we go in and we scrub our minds in a really soft, gentle way, which is often achieved through meditation, right? Quieting the mind to just get in there and just start to feel within ourselves the peace, joy, and love so we can project it out. Now, saying that, I know exactly what this person is talking about. I have had it happen to myself where I'm like, there is no reason I should be grumpy right now. And honestly, for me, there is a lot of hormonal adjustment. I'm also at an age where hormones are like, but teenagers are also like, They're just at a high level and I'm at a low level, right? And when it comes to hormones like estrogen, progestin, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, they're very much about our environment. It's brain chemistry. Sometimes there's just something that's off, and sometimes it's planetary, right? So I think you're doing the right things by having the awareness around it. And I think that you can take supplements, but what I would suggest is, if it's an ongoing thing, I would definitely go in and seek supervision from, an OBGYN or a homeopathic alternative medicine, if that feels right for you. Someone who can go in and maybe do some muscle testing with you and see if you're low or deficient. But sometimes we're just having a bad day, and sometimes there's just a lot happening planetary wise. But I think overall, what I would say is I feel that we're being asked to practice with these tough days. Not go into that place of self-bullying. I can't get myself out of it. Why can't I get myself out of it? I know better. That's what I do to myself. And I have to come back to, just that, like, no, let me just love myself. Okay, I'm feeling this. I get this. I don't want this. And also just asking spirit to let it go, right? Please help me let it go. I'll give a little plug here for a guy that I listen to his meditations a lot if I'm in these weird spaces. Like if I feel like my mind viruses are like really like dialed up. When I first started listening to him, and forgive me, but when I first started listening, I was like, I don't know about this guy. And because a friend of mine had sent me a link, and it didn't take long to realize that, wow, there's really some great stuff happening here on the meditation. His name is Steve Noble. He's got lots and lots and lots of videos and meditations, and I find them really helpful. I can put the link in here too. So you might find that he can help switch. But to your point, as you know, when you wake up, if you start getting those thoughts, do not follow them. Rule number 1, do not follow the thought. And that is where you can most successfully divert that spiral and that craziness that can take off like wildfire. So wake up, think of gratitude. It can be as simple as, I am so grateful for the comfortable bed that I'm in. I'm so grateful to have, a warm place. I'm so grateful to have a roof over my head, right? So just go back to the basics, start with those things. And if you're waking up and it's like really off, put on a meditation before you get out of bed. Because I know how this works, at least for me, that if I wake up and I have a little tweak and I don't do something that shifts it before I get out of bed, I get into my routine of my matcha tea. I do this, I do that, but I haven't come in and like controll's not the right word. I haven't monitored, I haven't shifted that thought. That origination thought is important. So get to that one, stop it in its tracks, and find some tools. I have this whole list in my notes section of my phone. It's like morning meditations, evening meditations. And then I have little sections like, okay, I'm feeling lack. I need to do this. I just need a pick me up. So here's this. And so I don't have to, constantly search for stuff. I just have sort of my go-to ones. So you might want to create that list if you don't already have it. So it's easy when you wake up and you just go, okay, go into the morning list, go into the Maybe it's Abraham Hicks, right? She's always good. She's got those great rampages. Oh my goodness. That'll help shift you right away. But you got to do it in the first few seconds of you recognizing that your eyelids are popped open and you're not having the thoughts that you want. Okay. Next question. How do you make or keep real connections in our increasingly virtual world? I think the really obvious answer is get off your screen, right? Get off your screen. I have to tell you that recently, well, I've got some other problems, which maybe I'll share later in the video, but that I know is making me extra sensitive right now. But my right hand, where I hold my phone, is energetically compromised. I know that sounds crazy, but it's just, I have a weakness right now on my right side of my body. And when I get this inflammation, I get really sensitive to my body and also to the external world. And I can feel the radiation. I don't know if it's radiation, but I can feel it coming into my hand. And my hand is almost like, I don't want to touch it. So I'm actually reconsidering now setting my phone somewhere else. I'm reconsidering not spending so much time on our virtual systems. And the other thing that's just so obvious is just pick up the phone and call someone. I find when I do that and I feel like, oh, I don't know if they're going to be like, what are you just calling me for? Because I feel like everybody expects you to write them and say, can you chat? Just call. Then you don't get in these texting things. And if you can't, they can't. Make a point to actually call people as opposed to be on. I also find that social media, I just don't look at it very often. I know that's probably not so great for what I'm doing in business. And I know I miss a lot of really fun and special things about my friends, but I just realized that I get into like doom scrolling if I do. And I would so much rather just tune in and be like, who do I want to talk to today? Who do I need to touch base with today? And do that as opposed to, oh my gosh, who do I got to find today? Who do I got to talk to? And, texting and texting and, commenting on posts and this and that and the other. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying just reduce the amount of time. There's screen settings in your phone. You can use it for your children, but you can use it for yourself. So like, let's say that Instagram, you just spend so much time on it and you're like, you walk away and you're like, oh my God, I just spent an hour. Go into the settings. I don't know exactly where they are. I'm sure if somebody knows, write them in the notes, but go into the settings and give yourself a time limit. I only want 10 minutes a day on Instagram. I only want 10 minutes a day on YouTube. I only want 10 minutes on, right? So then you have like, okay, that you're only going to spend 30 minutes total on social media and you've allotted yourself the time. I know it's remedial, but sometimes that's what we got to do to control our craziness of getting lost in the virtual world. I would highly recommend it because I'll tell you that personal connections, eye contact, conversations, hugs, they raise our oxytocin levels, whereas a lot of this other stuff can raise our cortisol levels, which creates that anxiety, whatever it is, anxiety that you don't have the money to do what they're doing, anxiety that you don't have the friends that they have, whatever it is. So yeah, just get off the screens. That's the best way to do it, isn't it? Yeah, so simple. Okay. Next question. When overwhelmed and down, struggling with turning towards someone or self-soothing, starting to desire connection. I'm starting to desire connection and hugs in times like these, but worry about being too much, being negative Nancy, and eventually pushing people away. Thoughts? Yeah, I think, just go in there, go in you, and know that everything's within you. Know that if there's not someone either in your house or there's someone in your house, but they're not interested in having that moment of touch or care or recognition or a hug or, whatever it is that you're feeling like you need, that you can just go vertical and just align in and just, again, sit back and just be like, Everything I have is within me. I don't need anyone. Spirit, show me, guide me, direct me. If there's someone in my household, or there's someone or somewhere I'm supposed to go outside to be in that communion with another, right? Just ask for the guidance. Is it time that I go outside and walk in nature and feel the breeze and know that that's source intelligence touching my skin, right? Nature can do all the things that humans can do and more, even more, because nature's magical and humans have a lot of mental thought constructs that they want to get stuck in. So nature's coming forward as a really great way. The other thing, this is something that a dear friend of mine recommended to me yesterday. I haven't done it yet, but I think it was super brilliant, is get on the floor, put out a blanket, and she was recommending that you put some coconut oil on and you just roll around in the blanket and you just feel the sensation of the blanket, right? And just get the body moving, get the chi moving, get the life force energy moving. I think that's a great way, right? I mean, it sounds kind of silly. Hug your, I don't know, if you got a stuffed animal or you got something, if you got a dog, maybe just, be with them and feel them, feel their energy, feel their fur and all of that, and just get into the really simple yet juicy bits. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. If anyone else has any other ideas, I always love to hear them in the chat too. So, all right, next question. I'd say the most pressing is about attachment. The most pressing question is about attachment. How to truly let go of this attachment to another person that is not rational or necessary. Why do I attach so deeply to one person and take forever to let it go, even when I know or trust it's for the highest good? And how do I never do this again? What is the switch that needs to happen to stop this attachment for another? What is the core wound of separation that needs to be healed, and how, once and for all? Okay, so many things here. Such a great question. I think we all have, well, maybe not all, but I would suspect that most of us here have had a situation where we've really become attached to an idea about someone, been romantically inclined or wanting something more from them and not getting it, or not being in alignment at the right place at the right time. What comes to mind about this is, first of all, recognize, and you've probably done this, but recognize what it is about that person that you love so much, because they are reflecting an aspect of you that you would like to be more in touch with within yourself. So what is it? Are they super creative, or do they do X, Y, or Z? And you're just like, oh, I just love that about that person. And then just go within you and say, oh, maybe that's a heed or calling for me to be more like that. Or that person, they're so grounded, they're so this, they're so that. It's like just seeing all of those elements of the person as elements of yourself that you actually want. Because when you're projecting this kind of attachment to someone, you think that they have something you don't. Otherwise, you wouldn't be attached to them. Otherwise, you just be like, yeah, go on your merry way. I'm doing my thing. You're doing your thing. So there's a great lesson there, which I'm sure you know, and I'm sure you've dug into them, but go very specifically about the characteristics about this person that you love, because there are aspects about yourself that you may be missing, or that you may need to want to accentuate about yourself. Or they may be things that you just want to honor about the other person. But we know that everybody is just a reflection of ourselves, here to help us have an experience, here to teach us something. So how do we get over it? How do we move through it? We got to get back to that origination thought. So when you hear yourself thinking about it, come up with a mantra that takes you into another space. Like, let's say you're thinking about this potential romantic partner, you're interested, they're not, you feel attached to them, they're not to you. Thank goodness, because then it would be a dual attachment, and that gets even crazier. So first of all, I guess being gratitude that it's only you that's having the problem. Then the entanglement's a little bit easier. So come up with a mantra and say to yourself, when this thought comes up about this person, I am going to say this. And maybe this is, I'm so grateful for a life partner that sees me for all my beauty in which I see myself. I'm so grateful to be able to share this experience with another in a very balanced and interdependent way. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Right? It can be that simple, but as soon as you get that thought about that person, you just go right to that mantra. Because if you don't catch it in the beginning, then you keep going. And when you hear yourself talking to somebody new, I mean, the worst is, I know I'm being dramatic, but the worst is when you find someone new that hasn't heard the story and then you want to tell them everything all over again. You've got to stop yourself. You got to stop telling the story. You want people to listen to you. You want people to hear you tell the story, but you got to stop telling the story, right? Otherwise, you're not going to release the attachment if you're attached to talking about the story. So yes, I know that all too well. I do that all the time. So just unattach from, the story. Sorry. No, you know what? I was going to tell you a story, but it's a story that I don't want to tell anymore. And so let's talk about, and then go into something else and have that next thing maybe ready. Like when you catch yourself, like, what am I going to talk to somebody about when I want to go there? Talk about the positive things. Talk about what's going on in your life. Talk about all the beautiful alignments that are happening, all the things that are working, right? Stay there. And having this awareness is what's going to keep you from going into it again next time. And even if you do next time, it just, it's like the time frame gets shorter and shorter and shorter that we can move through the lesson. So you're doing the work. You're getting it all done. You're zipping it up. And you know what? You might get tested with one more. I mean, I find that when I have actually broken through something, that I still get tested one last time by the universe. And it's so frustrating because I'm like, dang it, I thought I did this already. I thought I moved through this. So don't fall into the disappointment when it happens one more time, because you're going to get yourself out like that. You're going to be like, oops, I did it again. I don't know who sings that song. So hopefully that's helpful. It is actually simple, as you know, but it's not so simple when we're in the emotion of it. So stay out of the emotion of it, which means that you don't tell the storylines and you have a mantra that shifts you into a different story. You talk about all the things that are working for you, and then poof, that storyline starts to fade away. But if you keep it alive, it's going to stay alive. And when you keep it alive and you tell it to somebody else, they're going to keep it alive for you, because they're going to ask you next time and the next time. And it's just a circuitous loop. So just stop it. Bob Newhart, just stop it. On Mad TV. It's a fun video if you haven't checked it out. Okay. Next question. Where was I? My trust and knowing are really shaky right now. I was so clear on so many things, and then it just all crashed a couple of weeks later. Whatever happened astrologically with the eclipses and the Israel war, etc., something big shifted, and I and many people have been struggling since. What is that about? And what can we do to release these darker, negative energies that are holding us back from pure love and light and our missions? Well, first of all, what comes to mind is don't give energy to anything holding you back from love and light and your purpose. The more energy you give to it, as you might have read in my story, I don't have my book right here, but Angels, Herpes, and Psychedelics, Black Magic, there's a whole section on Black Magic. So the more energy you give to a concept or an idea, the more it's going to show up. It's basic law of attraction stuff. And yes, there are negative energies. The way to work with them is to recognize them and to also know that it's sort of that yin and yang, and the dark and the light is a dance together. So while there are some very traumatic things happening in the world with, as you mentioned, the war, several wars actually, there is an underbelly that is coming up. Let's stay in the blessings I'm not saying it to discount what's happening, but stay in the blessings of knowing that energetically, spiritually, we are blowing some serious shit up. And when we blow it up, we all feel it. We feel it within ourselves. We feel it for our brothers and sisters. And so we want to stay in the higher vibration of it all. We want to raise our consciousness. We want to keep using our toolbox. We want to keep doing the things that bring peace, joy, and love to the world. I know some people are like, well, how can you be so happy? Or how can you, say those things if other people are suffering? Because we know that us going into suffering does not pull someone else out of theirs. It doesn't. We have to shine the light and show the way. So we have to be anchored in our own platform of the groundedness of this terrestrial third dimensional field. And at the same time, be in that vertical position connected to the celestial source intelligence and expand our consciousness as we go along, right? Expand it so that we're not caught in the negativity of these things that are happening. We acknowledge it. We have compassion for it, but we're not getting in the shit with it. So important. So important. Hopefully that answers the question. If not, I'm happy to talk about it more next week because I think it's an ongoing theme. All right. I got to look at my other note section here. Oh, you know what, though? I think I didn't quite answer my trust and knowing are really shaky right now. I think that's happening for everyone right now. I think there's moments, and I think that they're tests from the universe. The universe is not in a bad way. This isn't like a test. This is like initiations. This is like, well, where are you at in your groundedness? And when you realize that you're shaky, then you just go, okay, thank you. Got a little bit more work to do. Got to dust that off. Got to get that residual out, right? I'm sitting in a belief that's not serving me or humanity. It's that kind of thing. So I think give yourself some grace on the shakiness. It's happening. It's happening to all of us. It's going to happen more. It's going to be more intense. This is like, I don't know, probably only the beginning. So be grateful for the ability to practice, right? It's kind of like in the military, you practice for tough stuff. And when you're practicing it, it's tough, right? That's why a lot of people can't make it because they don't want to go through the toughness, the mental agility that you need and the calmness that you need to have in the face of like real chaos, right? So you do all this prep work and you practice and you practice and you prep and you practice and you build tools and you, right? Well, that's what we're doing right now. We're doing that for humanity. We're doing that for our own soul sovereignty. We're doing that for what's coming. And we all chose to be here right now in this time with all of this crazy stuff that's happening. We chose to be here. So, sit in it safely, meaning like don't sit in it in a way that you're wallowing in any of it. Sit in it in a way that you're acknowledging it and you're thanking it and you're allowing it to move through you, not take you over, not keep you stuck, not sit you down, but just move on through. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit more. All right. Next question. Time check. Ooh, we're down to the hour here. When both individuals in a fairly new relationship, for example, under 1 year, with each possessing different types of addiction owing to childhood trauma or abuse, could the relationship mature while the individuals work on their own process expressions of trauma, which is deeply embedded in their psyche? This is a juicy one. I love it. And I want to say, absolutely, you can. Absolutely. Sometimes it's the juiciest place because we attract people in our lives based on chemistry. And that chemistry is often the core wound, right? That we share a core wound and we're there in relationship to reflect it back to each other. So the fact that this question appears that the two people have awareness around this is step number one. So that's so amazing. You have the awareness about what the wounds are. Step number 2 might be the most important step, which is that both parties in the relationship need to want to do the work. You got to do the work, right? One person doing the work, you can get so far, but you're not going to get all the way. And that one person is going to be really worn out from doing all the work. So step number 2 is you both have to really want to do the work. If you don't want to do the work, then I would consider doing the work on your own and coming back to the relationship at a later time. So that's another option. It doesn't mean you have to say, we're never going to be together or we're breaking up forever. You just say, then I'm going to give you your time and space to go do your work. But if you ignore it, you ignore the work, you ignore that you know you have these wounds, you band-aid it, right? Which means you just go along your merry way because you're enjoying the companionship, but the intimacy is volatile because you're not vulnerable with each other because you haven't worked through the wounds. Then it's just going to be torture, right? Then you're just going to build this entire dossier against each other that is going to inevitably come out later where you hate each other or you're fighting or you just cannot get to a place of like communicating. So yes, stay in the relationship, work through it, use your awareness, use your communication tools. And when the communication tools don't work, say, my communication tools are broken in the moment, but I really need to talk about this. Or find a very trusted, high vibe, highly conscious person that can guide you, not a friend that's going to keep you in the drama, and look for that support. The last thing that I would also just throw out there as a possibility is there is studies that have taken place. When I was at the psychedelic science conference in Denver in June, there was only over 12,000 people there. I went to one of the sessions and there was, I think, 4 people on the panel, and maybe it was 5, but they were doing clinical trials on couples therapy with MDMA. And we're having amazing results. So whether it's MDMA or it's psilocybin mushrooms, you'll have to check the legality of your state, and all of that. But that also can be a great option. And the reason why I say that is because if you do a psychedelic ceremony in a safe set and setting with a server or someone who's a space holder for you, a sacred space holder, and someone who understands the medicine that can help you work through what you're eventually going to be integrating when you're off the medicine, is you'll be able to just put a pause on that default mode network that you may or may not even realize is always running a narrative. And you'll be able to look at each other from a very inner child, soft, loving way. I don't know if you saw years ago, there was this beautiful, I've never been to Burning Man, but I saw this picture from Burning Man, and it was like these huge wire people, and they were sitting back to back. And then inside these huge wire people sitting back to back, there were 2 inner child people standing and putting their hands together, through the backs of the bigger people. It's such an amazing image because that's really what it is we're just trying to unravel that darn mind and all of those beliefs and all of the trauma and the drama that's happened to us that keeps us from being vulnerable and showing our love light out there, right? Because we think somebody's going to take it away. Nobody's taking away your love. You are love, period. End of story. Someone else that comes in that makes you feel love, an animal, a person, a parent, a friend, they're just reflecting your own love. So no one can take it away. Yes, I understand that it feels that way, but I'm just suggesting that we step through this illusion because it's always going to be the first marriage, as Axel would always say. You've got to be in love with you. And that's when you share with others this love that's unconditional, without the attachments, without the dependency, without the I need you. Yes, we all want and need each other to some degree, but we want to be interdependent, not dependent on someone, and not so independent that we're like, I don't need anybody. No, that's the Lone Ranger approach, and it's lonely. That's why they call it the Lone Ranger. All right. I think that answers all of our questions for today. Let me just make sure that I didn't accidentally skip anything? Do I have anything more on the live chat? I don't think so. All right, you guys, this has been a lot of fun. And I always look forward to your questions. So please, if you got any pearl of wisdom out of today, please give me a little thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, do the bell, and stick with me. Share me. Tell your friends. I love doing this. I love providing it. When two or more are joined together with questions and insights from our higher selves, we can exponentially impact what's happening on planet Earth right now, raise the vibration, expand our consciousness, and ultimately awaken. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. I love you all, and I look forward to next week, 11:11 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube. All right, bye for now.